Star Wars 7x7 episode 1811. Today, we're going to dive deeper into the secrets of Vader Immortal episode 1. If you have not had the opportunity to experience the story, well, I'm going to walk you through at least the first half of it. Let's go! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and as we talked about yesterday, there are videos already online that show you what the gameplay experience is like for Vader Immortal. And I say gameplay experience, it's more like just, the VR experience and the things that you have to operate and manipulate. And yeah, there is some lightsaber stuff, so there's gameplay in that sense, right? But, the overall virtual reality experience of Vader Immortal, you can see what that's like on various YouTube videos. Heck, I'll link to one in the show notes if you want to check that out. And not necessarily everybody's going to get a chance to check out what the scene is like on the Oculus. And so, thank goodness for videos like that, because according to ILM X Lab and Lucasfilm, the story is not going to be available anywhere else except on the Oculus. It's not like there's going to be an expanded edition novelization, for example, or anything like that. But we can also talk about it here too. And so for the next couple of episodes, we're going to talk about Vader Immortal and what the story is and some of the other Easter eggs and other details that are hiding in the story and in the experience. But for today's episode, we're going to walk through the first half or so of the story and give you an idea of what happens during it. This is a full spoiler episode of Star Wars 7x7, so if you have not yet experienced Vader Immortal and you don't want it spoiled for you, then save this episode of the show for a later date. But if you're okay with me discussing the details with you, then let's do it. So in classic Lucasfilm style, right after you get the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away screen, they don't do a crawl. They actually just drop you in the middle of the action, which is the classic Lucasfilm thing to do, drop you right in the middle of the action. You are on your ship, the Windfall. You are the smuggler that's, name unknown at this point. And the Hutts are after you because you have apparently stolen some spice from them. And your droid companion Zoe 3, who is voiced by Maya Rudolph of Saturday Night Live fame, is saying, yeah, we got to get out of here. And you make it into hyperspace. And she says, yeah, we're going to be sitting pretty once we get to Shadow Market and sell this stuff. Shadow Market, incidentally, is a market on Cloud City on Bespin. And it's a nod to Star Wars Uprising, the mobile game that is sadly no more, and that's probably one of the things that someday on this show I would love to talk about in more detail, but that'll be down the line. However, things go awry in hyperspace because you get pulled out of hyperspace by an interdictor, which is a special kind of Star Destroyer that can create gravity wells and suck nearby ships out of hyperspace. And it happens, I guess, that whatever hyperspace route you're following goes by Mustafar, because that's where you get yanked out of hyperspace to. And it's amazing from the virtual reality experience perspective, because the Windfall has a cockpit with a glass ceiling, and you look up and you see the interdictor slowly drifting over you and dwarfing your ship, and you think that this must be what it was like for the Tantive 4 when we saw it getting overwhelmed by Darth Vader's Star Destroyer, the Devastator, in the original A New Hope. Like, the experience of it is pretty amazing. And Admiral Carius, who is voiced by Steve Blum of Zeb Aurelio's fame from Star Wars Rebels, comes on your screen and says, hey, you're coming with us. And so you have to slave your ship to theirs, and they take you down to Mustafar and into a docking bay in Vader's castle. From there, they break into your ship, they shoot Zoe, they stun you, and the screen goes black, and then you start to hear sound before they give you a visual again. And the sound you hear is the sound of the interrogator droid, the little black circular probing one with the hypodermic needles and stuff, which is really creepy to hear just that thing and be faced with, completely black screens. And as you wake up, you hear the "good, you're awake" from Admiral Carius, and this is where we have the scene where he says, yeah, make this quick and easy and I'll give you a nice death and don't make it messy in here. Vader's coming, blah, blah, blah. He asks you to open this configuration and you do, and Vader says, I'm coming back for you very soon. So he leaves the room, Admiral leaves the room, and that's when you notice that this is actually a general prison area with other prison cells, and 2 of those cells are occupied. One of them is occupied by your robot, Zoe, how lucky, and another is occupied by a lore master of a cavern clan. It's a Mustafarian character, and his name is Vader Foma, and he calls this configuration thing the artifact, and says that nobody has been able to open it in eons. This is a bit of a problem because he says that Vader is now within reach of enormous power and that he wants to conquer death itself. And Violet says, you got to get out of here. You got to get off this planet. Let's go. Help me break out of here. And, it's not a bad idea trying to get off this planet and get away from Vader as fast as you can. So you go through other virtual reality exercises, and ultimately you get to a point where there are too many Imperials and they're alerted to your escape. And so Violet says he's going to hold off the stormtroopers, and instead of getting to the landing bay, to the hangar bay, where the windfall is, you're going to have to go deeper into Vader's castle and find the priestess of Violet's clan, and he gives you a totem that will help the priestess find you and says, now go! And so you have to run off and, find your way to this priestess, which involves you going into the lightsaber dojo where you're introduced to lightsaber training techniques, and this is ultimately how you start learning the lightsaber business that you will get to play in the standalone lightsaber dojo part of the Vader Immortal app. And once you make it down into the caverns, well, that's what we will talk about on tomorrow's episode. But there is one piece of the puzzle that Violet shares that I haven't shared with you yet, and I will do that after the break, so stay tuned for that. Hey, Rebel Rouser. If you've got a business that needs to reach a dedicated audience of Star Wars fans, or you know somebody who does, then you might want to reach out to me. I've got a show that reaches thousands of people between the audio version, the video version, and our social media channels, and I'd love to find out how I can help you with your business ventures too. Just reach out at sw7x7.com/sponsors. That's plural SPONSORS. That's sw7x7.com/sponsors, and let's see how we can work together. Welcome back. So here's the thing. Violet says about, the fact that you are able to open the artifact, that Vader has been scouring the galaxy for someone of your bloodline, quote unquote. Now, the fact that, somebody from a particular bloodline is able to open this mysterious artifact, and this is all happening on Mustafar, well, it raises the question of whether your character, the person whom you're playing as in Vader Immortal, is actually Mustafarian. Like, whose bloodline are we talking about here? And we already know that Vader has talked about the character that you're playing as having some sort of latent force ability. So, yeah, this bloodline business, now we have a different bloodline that's being introduced as being important in the galaxy in its way. So this has the potential to be a rather momentous installment as far as Star Wars storytelling goes. And we'll have to see whether the second half of episode 1 gives you any more insight in that regard, which it kind of does. But, ultimately it's going to be episode 2 and 3, I think, that really pull the curtains back and explain this for what it really is. But we'll get, again, into the details of the second half of episode 1 of Vader Immortal on tomorrow's show. That is going to do it for the rundown today, though. And again, as always, thank you so much for joining me for this and every episode of Star Wars 7x7. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.